Man, Magic was the man back in LA, dude. Magic, in fact, it's funny. You should mention that, dude. I'm watching the rise of the Lakers on, I think it's HBO or Netflix, one of them channels.
HBO.
And HBO. And I remember when the Lakers went shit. Lakers, they came from Michigan, I think it was, Minnesota. Minneapolis, okay? And they wasn't shit. They just was the Lakers. You know, they're just another basketball team. And when they started to win, and Magic came with the Showtime and Coop Loop and Kareem with the Skyhook, everything had a name. Everything was branded, and this put the whole city, man, on a whole nother vibe, dude. Because I mean, and here's the cool part about it. In Magic came here in like 80, early 81, 82, or something like that.
81, yep.
81. The eve after dark, Carolina West, a lot of the clubs was popping, and the Lakers be up in the club. You'll see that. And this is when in 81, LA was full of clubs. LA had clubs all over the place. Beverly Hills, Hollywood, the Hood. It had to be at least 100 clubs in LA back in 81, man. You could party literally every night of the week in Los Angeles. And you'll go to a club, and there's Magic, there's Kareem, there's Norm. No, you see Kareem. You see Norm Nixon. You see Jamal Wilkes. You saw Norm, Magic, Coop, every once in a while, and Worthy. Okay, but Magic was everywhere. Magic was the man, you know, and he meant a lot to the city of LA, and that's no bullshit.
Yeah, that whole time was so much fun. Well, I'm talking 86, 87 when I actually remembered it. But I didn't get to see when the Lakers were a crappy team to them being, you know, I always remember them just being the shit.
They were just another team, dude. And you got to remember, that was right after the ABA and the NBA merged. Because I think the ABA and NBA merged back in the late 70s, early 80s, something like that. Don't hold me to it. But I remember when it was two different leagues, okay? And the ABA had a 3-point shot. They could let you dunk. And the NBA, you couldn't do none of that shit, okay? Then they started letting you do it in the NBA, and then cats like Magic came in and just made it a whole nother thing, man. The no look pass, and you know, watch this show, man, because it's only a tip of the iceberg of what's really going on.
Yeah, it's in my queue next, so I'll have more to chime on later. But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. Shout out to Marlon. Hit that like button. Shout out to Tony Snow, Sedborn, iMac Music. Thank you guys so much. Let's move on. Actually, no, before we move on, Lonzo, speaking of clubs, and you mentioned in 1981 there were a lot of clubs in LA. We briefly touched on this a long time ago, but back in like the 1940s, I guess around that time, there was an area in downtown LA where black folks like had their own section, right? And there was like a bunch of clubs. It was like popping. I think you told me, old man Dudos used to tell you stories about that.
Well, it wasn't down. It was
Central Avenue.
Central Avenue down in the 30s. Okay, it wasn't really downtown. They had some spots downtown, but most of it was on Central Avenue between like the 30s, like the 20, the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. Central Avenue was like Crenshaw was in the 80s. Okay, Crenshaw in the 50s and 60s and 70s was like Crenshaw was in the 80s. There is no street I can compare that to right now. Maybe Whittier Boulevard. Okay, and that's not even us. That's a whole other culture. But Central Avenue had all the clubs because that was far east side. That was southeast, way across the other side of the freeway. And we had a whole little subculture of nightclubs. We had the Dunbar Hotel. We had all kind of the clubs. I can't think of all that shit. I was a baby myself back then, man. But I remember talking to old man Dootsy, who owned Dudo's Music Center, and the reason why he built it on Central Avenue is because Central Avenue was the main drag, and Compton was predominantly white when he first built it. Excuse me. And you know, black folks like going where white folks are. If white folks got it, it must be good. So let's go to Compton. But you had to get them in and out because Compton PD was still all white. So they would come into Compton, see Al Green, Bobby Blue Land, BB King, whoever else is on the show, Tina Turner, Tina Turner, and then they dip in, dip out, and that was the game plan.